Amway or Scamway? What is going on, everybody? This is MoHeat back again with another video. This video is going to be covering Amway. I do want to make something a little bit longer where I take a little bit of time to analyze network marketing, not just Amway, but all of them. However, we'll release that at a later time. This is solely just my experience. I know many of you that might be finding this video might currently be in the recruiting process or have maybe heard of a friend that might be in it. And you know, with all the negativity online, it's definitely worth, you know, just doing some research and learning a little bit more. And that's kind of the intent of this video. And again, I hope this helps to kind of inform your decision as to whether you or someone you know should join. So with that being said, let's get right into it. I have a lot to say about them. I spent a very long time with Amway, so I joined at the beginning of 2020, my last semester in college. It was a very interesting time. I originally joined because I was just so pumped up on business. I know at the beginning of a lot of our business careers, whether in the corporate route or the startup route or a little bit in between, many of us can get really pumped up on people like Gary Vee, Grant Cardone, Ray Dalio, just listening to their stuff. And even Robert Kiyosaki has some stuff to say about network marketing, and you know, just really itching to start that first business. Especially if you hang around startup people in college, you really just get that energy and get that vibe, and you want to compete, you know, friendly competition, of course. I wanted to start something of my own, and I also wanted coaching and mentorship. You know, I was creating content. I had my full-time job lined up post-college. I already, you know, had some savings. I kind of was at a point where I was ready to start something and also start just gaining insight from people who have done it before me. So, you know, I was really looking for some of that mentorship, having conversations with people. It is worth noting that I also didn't know anything about network marketing when I first was in this process. But let's start getting to kind of how I ended up in this. I actually had a friend that I met. We weren't super close or anything like that, but there's someone I met at AT&T when I interned there, and he was a full-timer while I was an intern. And we stayed in contact for the semester prior to that. He actually helped me with a project, and he's a very motivated guy, and he's actually still with them at this time of recording. It has done great things with AT&T. But I guess like he reached out to me, and you know, we were just catching up, and you know, I kind of mentioned that I was looking for coaching and mentorship. So this was all in January 2020. I'm not going to mention any names of anybody for the sake of, you know, everybody I interacted with was, you know, kind and good people both in and out of the organization. So anybody that I bring up, I'll try my best to avoid just any names or anything like that. Also, potentially don't want to get any lawsuits. When we were talking, he was like, hey, I can set you up with my business coach, you know, somebody that's been able to give me a lot of value. And I'd be happy to make the introduction. At that point, you know, of course, what college student's going to say no unless you know about network marketing? But I didn't, and we'll get to some of that later. But we ended up having a Zoom call, an initial Zoom call, because the guy that was his coach was actually in Madison, Wisconsin, and then the original AT&T guy that introduced me was in, I believe, Dallas at the time, and then I was over in Indiana at Purdue. So we had an initial conversation, and I was like super pumped up, you know, I was like boom, boom, boom. But through the whole thing, like he never, like the coach and even the guy that introduced me, like they never mentioned like what this was or that it was Amway or the organization that we're technically a part of, BWW. And I'll kind of explain what the organization's like in a second. Instead, you know, he just got me pumped up on this vehicle, you know, creating your own asset, you know, gaining mentorship and coaching, and earning time was the specific words that were used, just earning their time, you know. It's funny because the coach had a coach himself, and, you know, they all had coaches. I should have realized then that was a pyramid scheme. But again, just like there were things that they like omitted out, and those that like don't necessarily know what they're getting into wouldn't know any better. So, you know, it was just kind of a weird inner recruiting process. That's what it was. They called it the vetting process. So I was on a series of more calls after that with the coach and then with the other guy from AT&T who initially introduced me. It took like about 2 months, so January, February, to earn partnership. Halfway through, they finally told me it was Amway, and it was just really funny. Because they hid the Amway and BWW names for so long, and that in itself is kind of a red flag, regardless if the organization is ethical or not. But there were these things called board plans, so like weekly Zoom calls, and apparently they used to be bi-weekly that we used to get on. And you had to do 2 of them in the process. You had to do more calls with the coach, right? Just getting to know him, getting to know the business, especially like once they start talking about Amway. Finally, an in-person meeting where you can just feel each other out and get a sense of it. And this was right before the pandemic, so I actually went to this meeting all dressed up. It was like suit and tie required, or just business professional. And you show up and everybody, I mean, yes, there's so much money in that room and the organization's huge. It's we were in like some hotel in this like massive room, right? We had some speakers, and it was that whole cult-like mentality thing that you hear about these types of organizations was very, very true. And in the moment, you know, a young college guy, like, I didn't care. Like, for me, it was like, yeah, like, you know, there's so much I don't know, and also the amount of money in that room. It's just so interesting to just be a part of that. And I was like super excited to earn partnership. Walking out, I remember my coach gave me a book, which is that classic example of how a lot of people are recruited, but I just got near the end of the process, so that was pretty funny. And this book was written by the organizations, which is just so weird. Like, they have their own books. When I heard Amway, there were a couple things that came to mind. Obviously, I'm not an idiot. I did research. You know, I saw all the negative stuff prior to even like finishing the vetting process. And then my friend, you guys know I did a couple videos with him, David Matura, was actually in Amway the year prior and left. Similar to myself, I left in September 2020, and I'll talk about why in a second. He left the year prior. He was in it for almost a year as well. He told me a lot about it, like, you know, like, because we're friends, and like I knew about it, I just forgot that that was Amway, and that's exactly what it was, except I was in a different segment of the organization. And, you know, he didn't necessarily hate it. He didn't necessarily have like that type of relationship with it, but he definitely like agreed that it's kind of shady. And we'll kind of get to why in a second. You know, not having anything else on the table besides my job, and I was about to graduate, I had a little bit more free time outside of, you know, my part-time job and everything that was going on then. Didn't know a pandemic was about to happen. I was like, yeah, why not? You know, and there's no real risk of quitting, so that's one benefit. You can quit whenever you want. Of course, you may have to have that awkward conversation, but you know, for me, I didn't really care. I was like, if I don't like it, I'll quit. Ultimately, like I did end up agreeing to do partnership and everything. So that's what they call it when you're a part of the organization, is you're a partner or an independent business owner. So you actually have a title, an independent business owner, which is really weird. I realized when I heard the Amway name and I learned more about it, and when I got to know other folks within the organization, that I've almost been recruited by 2 other people over the course of my college career, and I just didn't know it. So these people are everywhere, guys. Like, be careful depending on how you feel about this in the first place. But there were 2 other guys, that one guy at my work who I supervised, and then another guy that I think he was starting out when he tried recruiting me, and he had some trouble speaking. So I thought it was a little weird, and that's why I didn't join. But it made me realize that I was like so close to being recruited literally twice in my entire time at Purdue. So no matter what college you go to, there's this, and I'll talk about the recruitment in a second, like the types of people they recruit. There's people everywhere that might be trying to recruit you, and that's their job, is starting conversations and getting you into the process. But I didn't know it at the time. Anyway, when I looked up all this negative stuff, I brought it to the coach. I was like, look, like, you know, he was a nice guy. Like, he was very upfront, and I will say I appreciated that about him versus like working with somebody else that might have been a little bit more of like a cult-like guy. This guy was a lot more upfront, and honestly, I did kind of question why he stayed in the organization as well. It might just be because he's good friends with his coach and the other people in it, as well as a couple other factors. But he just ended up saying that like all those people on the internet and stuff like that are just ignorant. And you know, at the time I was like, okay, I can kind of get behind that, even though it's kind of pretentious to think that way. But you know, at the time, again, just like super pumped up, ready to start something. There wasn't too much of a risk. Either way, I ended up joining. So March 2020 was like right after my birthday. I think it was like the day after. I ended up giving them the benefit of the doubt, and I agreed to become a partner. The pandemic happened, so school went online, last couple months of school, and then so there were some job changes there just because things were closing down. But even with like my job and school and everything going on at the same time, I still made time for it. And what's funny is right before I agreed to be a partner, the original guy that introduced me quit himself. And he was kind enough to call me and had a really good discussion about just like what he thought of the program. And he shared the similar sentiments with like, David, just give it a shot. And ultimately, like, these are things to watch out for. So I appreciated that. He didn't necessarily leave me hanging, which was really nice. Let's transition over to, we talked about the kind of just how I got into it, the experience while being in it right before I left, and then kind of the reason as to why I left. And then we'll wrap it up with just some final thoughts. This is a very old organization. It's been around pre-internet, a very long time. These people, if you know a little bit about network marketing, you already understand, but there's these education companies that essentially are who you're with, officially with. So mine was BWW. There's a couple other ones. A lot of them start with B. They're the different ones across the country. And then they all use Amway as essentially a vehicle to conduct business. And Amway is just a collection of products, like those classical nutritional products and things like that. Some of them are pretty good, not gonna lie. I still have some left over. A lot of people think, yeah, you gotta use Amway to sell. No, you're not selling product. That's not how you make money. The way it works is it's very much a pyramid scheme by all definition of the words. You leveraging Amway within the education company. The education company is essentially a network of people that are doing the same thing, right? You're part of the same team, organization. Think of it as like, obviously you're under somebody. That's the kind of the whole point. And then your job is to recruit essentially other people, but the way they frame it is that you're coaching others to do what you've also done. But it's weird because you haven't really done anything. You're not making money. You're losing a ton of money. You're actually eventually required to buy a certain amount of product every single month. So you first off, you yourself can use it, and you could also sell it on the side. But the point is like that's kind of how the monetization works, is that you're recruiting a ton of other people who are buying product. Some of that product has a commission that goes to you. So that's the really, really high level overview. That's how the money is made. So ideally you want this massive organization, right? The whole pyramid scheme structure, because the commissions, they all pile up and they get to you eventually. And that's why people say it takes 10, probably 20 years to make money in network marketing, because imagine the amount of people you have to recruit. And then not only that, imagine the amount of product you have to buy to make that happen, the amount of money you initially lose, right? For a very long time. This isn't 1-2 years, this is many, many years. This is like, I'd be like in my 30s before I see even a little bit of return. That's pretty much how the business model worked in a nutshell. You don't make money by selling the products directly. You can make a little bit, but what you want to do is have people under you that are submitting their day one orders every single month. And then that creates commission for you. You teach them how to do the same thing. So that's how they frame it, as the coaching mentality. But outside of that, there wasn't much I can really say just like coaching. There was a little bit, but I knew a lot like going in. Like I knew how to budget. Like I knew how to I was graduating college. Like a lot of the stuff I know a lot of people my age didn't necessarily learn. But I did. Like I've always been like super independent. Living just life isn't that hard for me. So it's like these were some of the things that the lessons that they teach you. The coaching is honestly just basic life skills that you can learn on the internet, like budgeting and like managing, just like your spending and things like that, right? And sometimes people need some guidance with that, but it was weird because you can get a financial advisor for that, right? There were situations where I never really felt that I received any like quote unquote coaching or like how to start like an actual business outside of the Amway, right? You're an independent business owner, you're selling product, you're recruiting other people to do the same thing. I recruited one person. And then I had a few other people that I got close. You have to do this thing called play huddling, which is how you recruit people. So play huddling is essentially just your coach looking at your messages before you send them to make sure that they match like the wording of kind of how they want to present things. And they present it as like they're helping you communicate, they're helping you, blah, blah, blah. It's like super pretentious. And I'll get to kind of like why and how they think like that in a second. But you're literally like preparing messages to send 10 people a day on like LinkedIn, or I would imagine if it wasn't a pandemic, I would have done this in person, but you have to practice these conversations with your coach And you know, again, it was just a very weird process, and like I never really felt like any of that really. There was no like consistent feedback between the messaging. It was kind of just whatever he felt like, really just like editing. That's what you would do. You have these daily habits. You have to reach out to a certain amount of people. You can obviously do more, but you know, you get very tired of doing this. There's no return. There's no learning. There's some people enjoy doing this stuff. I don't. There was just no purpose behind it. And frankly, it was kind of weird. It was kind of annoying hitting up random people on LinkedIn. You're basically a recruiter, or an unpaid recruiter, unpaid sales guy. So those daily habits also included just like podcasts and reading and books and stuff. These were, you could definitely read your own books, but like, it was funny because these are recordings of speakers within BWW, within the organization, as well as books that they've curated. But a lot of them are really, you know, just mindset building. All of this is there to make sure that you want to stay in the organization, is to build that like camaraderie. So I can't blame them because they have terrible turnover. But the whole like point of all the books and the podcast is really just to continue hyping you up and, you know, giving you a reason to stay in the organization. There's a reason why so many people quit after 1 month, 2 months. There's still those board plans that I mentioned earlier. There's board plans, the weekly meetings that you would get on, and these in itself, I told my coach, I really felt like I wasn't getting too much value from. Same thing with the podcast. I stopped listening to those because they were just recordings of like how great everybody's lives were, like how much money they've made, but like there was never like a how-to, like this is what you should be doing, the habits, all that stuff. Like there was never like any, again, just coming back to no learning, no coaching, no purpose. It was just like, for me, it just felt like such a waste of time. You know, you're getting on a Thursday night when you already finished work. Probably, you know, I was doing school and work. You know, you're tired, and you have to get on these like through 2 hour long, maybe sometimes 3 hours as you move further into the organization meetings, where it was just a bunch of like mindset. Like they just constantly talk about mindset. Along with that, you have your weekly meetings and one-on-ones with your coach, right? And so you eventually, the person that introduces you, unless they end up being your coach directly, they dropped off. So I know my guy quit, but he wouldn't have been present later on anyway. His whole thing is he was recruiting me, right? And I can't blame him. You know, I tried the same thing when I was in it, talking to, like, hitting up just like old high school people and even just like people in college that I no longer talk to or saw that much, right? Like you're really looking for any connection you can to start having some of these conversations. And it just, the whole time, it felt super shady to me. I never liked it from the first message I sent, but like I just did it because I thought, okay, I don't know any better, right? Like I was like, hey, you know, these people have made money, blah, 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 without necessarily thinking about the bigger picture right off the bat. So I kind of want to go into why I left, right? So why I was beyond all this weird stuff. If you think about it in the long run, I'm going to do more of an analysis on this in another video. It seems like this can work, but it's just the amount that you have to put in for so little return. And frankly, like, you know, people have other things to worry about, like in life. Like you can't just sit at home and do this like every single day, or even just, it's just too much of a time commitment. The idea of coaching people to do something that I haven't necessarily done, but my coach apparently has, and all this stuff, was just not what I wanted. And the whole thing they try to market it as is, you know, reaching out to, you know, you earning mentorship from someone that has the lifestyle that you want. Honestly, the people at the top didn't have the lifestyle I wanted. It was weird because I never really saw, like, they were just normal people living in a normal house. Like there wasn't anything fancy about these people. And I'm sure maybe their income is cool, you know, they're getting a ton from this pyramid structure, but at the surface, like, it looks like they don't really have the lifestyle that they preach. It's not as crazy as you would think. A lot of these people, like that whole classic stereotype of look like they just put a suit on for the first time, is very, very true. Not all of them, but definitely a good few of them. There's just a lot of unprofessional conduct. Like, it was so funny at the beginning, one of my first board plans, there was this guy that came on and just say, "What's up, niggas?" Nobody said anything. It was just, obviously that's not something you should be saying on a business call. So that's just an example of the type of people that are on that. There's a lot of people talking about weed, just a lot of golf players. Nothing wrong with that. It's just these are the types of people, the way they recruit is mostly like, and I saw this and I was like, this is wrong. A lot of my coach straight up told me that they go after people with like lower confidence and like just like stuff like that, right? And like that was really weird. It was just it feels very wrong. You recruit a lot of international students. There's a ton of international students, and they obviously like that. I nothing against them, but a lot of them like seem very pretentious and just like they know more than they actually have, that they can show. It's like they have no results. This guy was like, I remember he was literally getting so red in the face when he was speaking and shouting and all this stuff. And like I understand, like, but like this is like not school, you know what I mean? This is supposed to be a very professional business call. You're supposed to learn stuff. Like it wasn't what it's supposed to be. And frankly, even if the business model is ethical, or like even if the pyramid structure is, it's not hurting anyone. Really, the recruiting process is you're going after people that you should be going after qualified people, right? Like people that can add and create value to the organization rather than just random people that might have a little bit lower confidence, might be at a vulnerable point in their life. It's weird for me because like I wasn't necessarily like at a vulnerable state, but I had free time. So that's also dangerous. If you have a ton of free time, these people will find you. So it's like it's really tough, and all these things were just building up in my mind. I had like 2, I think, discussions with my coach while I was in it when I was trying to quit, and I ended up staying in. We negotiated some stuff. That's what I liked about him. Again, some of the guys that I interacted with, cool people. That's just not necessarily they're not coaches, they're not millionaires, they're not billionaires. These aren't people that I wanted to get mentorship from. They're just normal guys, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just it's weird. So I quit in September 2020. I actually had something happen in the family around then, and it was just at that point my motivation was completely gone, and it was a good opportunity to quit. When you do leave though, like there's almost no contact because you're no longer part of this cult, for lack of better words, right? You're not creating money for them, almost, in a sense. Like there's no value like that you're adding to them, so of course they're not going to want to talk to you and coach you. I've seen stories online where some of these coaches and or when I say coach, I just mean someone above you. Like they take it very personally and they just don't want to have nothing to do with you because like it's just when you're in it, every person that you recruit is like you obviously want a lot of people under you. So when somebody quits, especially someone that you invested all this time in, it's just really tough. I didn't have that, but I can understand why, like, obviously the people above you have that, because they're just normal people, right? They're like you. Imagine if you were in that position. So to wrap this up, the final question is really just, should you join, right? Like that might be why a lot of you came here. I hope some of this story helped and just kind of showed you what to expect and kind of my experience. And I know a lot of people online have similar experiences. I am someone where I see things from an outside perspective. Like I like to put myself in other people's shoes, and I didn't necessarily have as negative. It was pretty negative, but I'm not hateful or anything like that towards the organization. There were a few things that I did get from it. So first off, I want to read the definition of a pyramid scheme to you. It's a fraudulent system of making money based on recruiting an ever-increasing number of investors. The initial promoters recruit investors who in turn recruit more investors and so on. This scheme is called a pyramid at each level, or because at each level the number of investors increases. So yes, that's exactly what this is. They try to sugarcoat it and say there's like 5 different income streams, but they're not income streams. They're just things that they like. They're just a bunch of different things that they like to mash together. This is purely a pyramid scheme. That's exactly what it is at face value. I like to see things at face value without overcomplicating stuff. So if that's the answer you needed, great. I am happy to make, like I said, in the future, I'm going to make a video that analyzes network marketing and MLM from a more educated perspective. I spend a lot of time reading about this stuff because I spent so much of my time in it. And like I don't regret it, but I'm trying to learn everything I can about it because it's very interesting how this whole stuff started, like Herbalife, all this stuff. Positives that I got: better communication. This wasn't as big just because I've done 4 years of like fundraising and cold calling and stuff before that in school. And I mean, just being in school, right? Like it's not hard to be a good communicator. Like, you know, you just got to put a little effort in. But I will say it was interesting to see how some of these other people communicated and some of the play huddling and other people's mindset and stuff like that. It's very good public speaking practice. So that's why, you know, we had that guy that was red in the face, and, you know, you're on these calls. I was on calls. This stuff should be in person if there was no pandemic. So you're getting up in front of all these people, you know, giving a speech about some topic for whether it's 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, right? It's good practice, especially if you're young. And then networking and camaraderie, right? Like at the onset of the pandemic, and I spent a lot of my time in my apartment because, I mean, everything moved online, school, work, everything. And there's very little human contact. So honestly, this was something that I looked forward to at first, just because it was just nice to kind of see some familiar faces and interact with people on some of these calls. You get some good network and camaraderie. That is, like, as much as it's very easy to leave the organization if you don't like it, if you don't resonate with it, part of it is like you feel very close to all these people. Not close, I should say, but just like the camaraderie, right? You're showing up, you're coming to these things, the board plans, you're just investing so much time with these people. So negatives, everything I discussed earlier. Feel like you can't do anything outside of it. It's a very big time sink. First off, and it's just that cult-like mentality and elitism that everybody seems to have without the results to actually show for it. And maybe they have the results, but again, it's just the way this whole structure is arranged is very shady. There needs to be some changes made in the long run. This was one of the 2 reasons why I felt like a little bit of a failure, because I spent so much time with them, and then when I left, I was like, oh wow, like maybe I don't have what it takes to like run a business or, you know, do side hustles like outside of work or something like that. You really feel that because the way they prop up the business and prop down other businesses, they don't want you exploring like investments in like, you know, e-commerce and like actual e-commerce, not the Amway e-commerce, and creating a Shopify store and just a lot of the things that people start with when they're trying to start a side hustle. Like they're always not discouraging you from it and making it seem like Amway is the vehicle that you should be spending all this time in and money in and all this stuff. And it's funny because it's from people that a lot of these people haven't done anything else, and they just claim to know what everything else is, like real estate investing and, you know, owning properties and just other vehicles that they've had no exposure to. They act like they know everything. So it's really tough. And even when the few months that I was in it, I started to feel that way, where I knew everything for a little bit. I'm much more humble again now. But when I left, it really hurt like myself, because I was like, oh man, like I really fooled myself into thinking like that was like the best business model on earth, like best organization on earth. Like, you know, as much as I wanted to leave, it was very tough to kind of leave, and it really hurt my motivation for a lot of other things for a little bit. Obviously, this video was done more on the negative side. I tried to really just create like a very systematic kind of analysis of all this stuff and really explain every step of the process. So this might be a little bit of a longer video, but ultimately I hope this helped. If you guys are in it right now, or even if you're in the process, don't hesitate to reach out to me on LinkedIn. If you guys are in it and really love this stuff, I mean, a lot of people do, there's people that do, and you know, they want to sit at home and just make money passively like this eventually, right? They're very into this stuff. I knew many people that were. Ultimately, that's great. That's good for you. I hope that this helped those that are kind of on the fence, and people like myself that would kind of rather do something a little bit more, frankly, just passionate with their time, you know, versus putting their time into something that's just really shady. It's not going to give you a lot of return for a very long time, and probably ever sometimes. Anyways, y'all, that's the video. Leave some comments. Let me know what you think. Let's smash that like button. There's so much people say at the end of the video. That's why I have to have this stuff written down for a little bit. Let's get this video trending higher than college students on most weekends. Please subscribe if even a fraction of my videos resonate with you. And I'll see everybody in the next one. Peace out.